Will African nations ever recover from the crises caused by Western nations? Things are very messed up in Senegal, but Western nations initiated all the issues. They made things very difficult for the region, from exploiting to buying leaders. The Western nations did everything. But how will Senegal recover from this? Let's find out. Things are messed up in Senegal. And now another issue has sparked after President Macky Sall's statement. President Macky Sall's recent announcement of the indefinite postponement of the presidential election has sent shockwaves across the nation. The move, considered a drastic deviation from democratic norms, has ignited a fierce debate and widespread criticism. The significance of this announcement lies in its potential to disrupt the democratic process and undermine the principles that form the foundation of a free and fair electoral system. But why has President Sall's decision generated uproar and criticism? The decision to postpone the presidential election has sparked uproar and criticism due to its perceived violation of the Constitution. Many critics argue that this move is a clear attempt by President Sall to extend his tenure in office, raising concerns about the erosion of democratic values. The opposition and the people of Senegal contend that such an action not only goes against the principles of a democratic society, but also deprives citizens of their fundamental right to choose their leader through a legitimate electoral process. How does the postponement impact the democratic process in Senegal? The indefinite postponement of the presidential election in Senegal has severe implications for the democratic process in the country. One of the primary tenets of democracy is the regular and orderly transfer of power through elections. President Sall's decision disrupts this fundamental aspect, creating a scenario where democratic norms are at stake. The postponement raises questions about the government's legitimacy and fuels concerns about the concentration and potential abuse of power. No, you must be thinking, what legal and constitutional concerns surround President Sall's decision? President Sall's decision to postpone the election has triggered legal and constitutional concerns within Senegal. Critics argue that such an action violates the constitutional framework that dictates the timing and procedures for elections. The Constitution typically serves as the supreme law of the land, and any deviation from its provisions can be seen as a breach of the social contract between the government and its citizens. The postponement controversy underscores the importance of upholding the rule of law to maintain the integrity of democratic institutions. How has the opposition responded to the announcement? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. The opposition in Senegal has been swift and vocal in responding to President Sall's announcement. Leaders from various political parties have denounced the decision, labeling it an affront to democracy and an abuse of presidential power. Protests have erupted across the country, with citizens expressing their discontent and demanding the reinstatement of the original election schedule. The opposition's united front highlights the gravity of the situation and the collective concern over the potential erosion of democratic principles. What are the people of Senegal's concerns regarding the postponed election? The people of Senegal are deeply concerned about the postponed election, viewing it as an infringement on their democratic rights. Citizens fear that such a delay could lead to a prolonged period of uncertainty and instability. The right to participate in regular, free, and fair elections is considered a cornerstone of democracy, and the people of Senegal are alarmed at the prospect of this right being compromised. The postponement has fueled a sense of disillusionment among the public, who now question the commitment of their leaders to uphold democratic values. The international community has closely monitored the situation in Senegal and has expressed its apprehensions regarding postponing the presidential election. Several countries and international organizations have issued statements condemning President Sall's decision, emphasizing the importance of democratic processes and the rule of law. Diplomatic pressure is mounting on the Senegalian government to address the concerns raised by both domestic and international stakeholders. The global response reflects a collective commitment to safeguarding democratic principles on a broader scale. But why did the president do it? Can he sugarcoat his doings? What is President Sall's reason for the election postponement, and why is it being questioned? President Sall has publicly stated that the ongoing investigation by the National Assembly against 2 justices in Senegal is the primary reason behind the decision to postpone the presidential election. According to the president, the investigation is a matter of significant national importance that requires resolution before proceeding with the electoral process. However, this stated reason is met with skepticism and scrutiny, as many question whether the investigation is a genuine cause for the delay or is being used as a convenient pretext to achieve other political objectives. Why is the investigation into 2 justices a significant factor in the postponement of the election? The investigation into 2 justices by the National Assembly is portrayed by President Sall as a matter of utmost importance, warranting the delay of the presidential election. The significance of this investigation lies in its potential to impact the judicial system and, consequently, the country's overall stability. President Sall contends that resolving the matter before proceeding with the election is essential to ensure a fair and unbiased electoral process. However, critics argue that the emphasis on this investigation raises doubts about the motives behind the decision to postpone. How do the opposition and critics perceive President Sall's stated reason for the election delay? The opposition and critics view President Sall's stated reason for the election postponement with suspicion and skepticism. While acknowledging the importance of resolving issues within the judiciary, they question whether the investigation is the primary factor behind the decision. Critics argue that President Sall may be using the investigation as a convenient excuse to extend his term in office, especially considering the announcement's timing, which coincides with the approaching election date. The lack of transparency in the decision-making process further fuels doubts regarding the legitimacy of the stated reason. Several factors contribute to the skepticism surrounding President Sall's explanation for the election postponement. Firstly, the announcement's timing raises eyebrows, coming weeks before the election date. Critics argue that if the investigation into the justices was a long-standing concern, the decision to postpone the election could have been made earlier. Secondly, the lack of detailed information about the nature and progress of the investigation adds to the skepticism. Without transparency, doubts persist about whether the investigation is genuinely the primary reason or if it is being exploited for political gain. The election postponement and the stated reason for the ongoing investigation into 2 justices significantly impact the public's perception. While acknowledging the importance of a thorough investigation within the judiciary, the public may become increasingly skeptical about the true motives behind the decision. The lack of clarity and transparency in the government's communication can erode public trust in the investigative process, leading to concerns about manipulating legal matters for political advantage. This, in turn, may contribute to a broader sense of disillusionment with the democratic institutions in Senegal. What steps can President Sall take to address the skepticism surrounding the election postponement? To address the skepticism surrounding the election postponement, President Sall must take proactive steps to demonstrate transparency and commitment to the democratic process. Firstly, providing detailed information about the ongoing investigation without compromising its integrity can help build trust. Secondly, open and honest communication with the public, opposition, and international stakeholders will be crucial. President Sall should emphasize the importance of upholding democratic values and reassure the public that the election delay is not a veiled attempt to manipulate the political landscape. International observers have closely scrutinized President Sall's stated reason for the election delay and have expressed reservations about the situation in Senegal. The lack of transparency in the explanation and concerns about potential political motives have led to a cautious response from the international community. Statements from various countries and organizations emphasize the need for adherence to democratic principles and the rule of law. International observers have called for a thorough and impartial investigation into the allegations against the justices while urging the Senegalian government to address the broader concerns surrounding the election postponement. ECOWAS is also the talk of the town these days, so let's talk about the role of the Economic Community of West African States. ECOWAS in this crisis. ECOWAS, as a regional organization committed to promoting democracy and good governance, finds itself at the center of efforts to address the political crisis unfolding in Senegal. The organization's role is pivotal in ensuring that democratic principles are upheld and that Senegal citizens' rights to choose their leaders through free and fair elections are preserved. Given its commitment to democratic values, ECOWAS cannot turn a blind eye to the situation in Senegal. The organization is responsible for responding to the violation of democratic principles in the region. ECOWAS has issued statements expressing concern over the political crisis, emphasizing the importance of democratic governance and the rule of law. This public stance underscores the organization's commitment to upholding the principles enshrined in its founding documents. ECOWAS has various tools to address the political crisis in Senegal. Firstly, diplomatic efforts can be employed to engage with the Senegalian government and the opposition. ECOWAS can mediate discussions, facilitating dialogue to find a peaceful and democratic resolution to the crisis. Additionally, the organization may consider implementing sanctions or other measures to exert pressure on the Senegalian government, signaling the gravity of the situation and the need for a swift return to democratic governance. ECOWAS intervention is crucial in the context of the Senegalian political crisis, due to the regional and international dimensions of the situation. As a regional body, ECOWAS is mandated to promote stability, democracy, and good governance within its member states. The crisis in Senegal not only threatens the democratic fabric of the country, but also has implications for regional stability. ECOWAS involvement is essential to prevent the crisis from escalating further and to uphold democratic values across the West African region. ECOWAS can contribute to ensuring a return to the democratic process in Senegal through active and constructive engagement. The organization should continue to advocate for dialogue between the government and the opposition, working towards a consensus that respects the democratic rights of the people. Mediation efforts can be intensified to facilitate a peaceful resolution, and ECOWAS can offer technical assistance to ensure the conduct of free and fair elections once the crisis is resolved. The community's consistent support and involvement are crucial in guiding Senegal back to a path of democratic governance. But most of the nations these days seem not to trust ECOWAS. So what challenges may ECOWAS encounter in addressing the Senegalian political crisis? ECOWAS may encounter several challenges in addressing the Senegal political crisis. Firstly, the organization must navigate the complex political landscape in Senegal, where tensions between the government and the opposition are high. Balancing the interests of different factions and fostering genuine dialogue may prove challenging. Additionally, the effectiveness of ECOWAS intervention relies on the cooperation of the Senegalian government, which may not be readily forthcoming. The international community's support and coordination are also crucial for ECOWAS to have a meaningful impact on resolving the crisis. What lessons can be drawn from previous ECOWAS interventions in similar situations? ECOWAS has a history of intervening in political crises within the West African region. Lessons from previous interventions, both successful and unsuccessful, can inform the organization's approach to addressing the Senegalian political crisis. Past experiences emphasize the importance of impartiality, inclusivity, and sustained diplomatic efforts. ECOWAS should draw on its expertise in conflict resolution and democratic governance to navigate the complexities of the Senegalian situation, learning from both the successes and challenges encountered in previous interventions. Has West anything to do with the crisis in Senegal? Well, France has some routes to the issues. So, how has France's historical influence in the region become a contentious issue in Senegal? France's historical influence in Senegal has become contentious, primarily due to its colonial history and ongoing presence in the region. Over the years, France has maintained diplomatic, economic, and cultural ties with Senegal, shaping its political landscape. However, the growing weariness among citizens about external influence and opposition figures challenging France's role has heightened tensions. For several reasons, France's historical influence in Senegal has become a point of contention. Firstly, the legacy of colonialism has left a lasting impact on the dynamics between former colonizers and their former colonies. Senegal's history of French colonization has created a complex relationship with lingering sentiments of exploitation and control. Additionally, France's continued presence in diplomatic and economic affairs raises questions about the extent of sovereignty and self-determination for Senegal. The call to expel France from the country challenges this historical influence, resonating with those who seek greater autonomy and independence. Then, a politician of Senegal, Ousmane Sonko, promised to expel France from Senegal, contributing to the contention. Ousmane Sonko's promise to expel France from Senegal has significantly contributed to the contention surrounding France's historical influence. Sonko's bold statement challenges the status quo and represents a direct rejection of the perceived interference by a former colonial power. This promise resonates with citizens who share concerns about external influence and seek to assert Senegal's independence. The opposition's stance against France's historical influence further amplifies the contentious nature of the issue, prompting reactions from supporters and detractors. Citizens' weariness about external influence in Senegal is significant as it reflects a broader sentiment of wanting greater autonomy and control over the country's affairs. The historical context of colonialism and the ongoing presence of foreign powers in diplomatic and economic matters contribute to this weariness. Citizens may perceive external influence as a potential impediment to their ability to shape their nation's trajectory independently. The growing awareness and concern about such external influence underscore the complexity of the relationship between Senegal and foreign powers. The challenge to France's influence resonates with many Senegalese people who harbor sentiments of independence and sovereignty. The historical context of colonial rule has left a lasting impact on the collective consciousness, fostering a desire among citizens to assert their autonomy. Ousmane Sonko's promise to expel France from Senegal taps into this sentiment, striking a chord with those who view it as a step towards reclaiming control over the country's destiny. The resonance of this challenge reflects a shared aspiration among many Senegalese people for greater self-determination. The contentious issue of France's historical influence contributes to the government's perception of opposition figures as threats by challenging established norms and diplomatic relations. Ousmane Sonko's promise to expel France from Senegal is seen as a direct challenge to the government's handling of foreign affairs. The opposition's stance on this issue resonates with citizens, potentially mobilizing support against the existing political order. The government may perceive opposition figures advocating for the removal of external influences as threats to its authority and stability, prompting defensive measures to counteract what is seen as a challenge to the status quo. All these issues because of Western nations make things more complicated for Senegal. Summing all this up, let's talk about what people are feeling. What is the general sentiment among the people of Senegal, and what do they demand? The general sentiment among the people of Senegal is one of frustration, marked by grievances related to mistreatment, political connections influencing job opportunities, and challenging overall conditions in the country. Citizens express dissatisfaction with the existing state of affairs, reflecting a broader discontent with the current political and economic situation. The sentiment among the people of Senegal also reflects a desire for greater autonomy and independence. There is a growing awareness that the time has come for the people of Senegal, and indeed African countries as a whole, to take charge of their destinies free from external interference and influence. This sentiment speaks to a broader call for self-determination and a rejection of perceived intrusions into the country's affairs. Several specific issues contribute to the frustration among the people of Senegal. One key concern is the mistreatment experienced by citizens, which may encompass various forms of social, economic, or political marginalization. Additionally, the influence of political connections on job opportunities adds to the dissatisfaction, creating a perception of unfair advantages and contributing to social inequalities. The overall tough conditions in the country, as highlighted by the struggling entrepreneur selling coffee on the streets, symbolize the economic challenges many Senegalese people face. Collectively, these specific issues contribute to a sense of discontent and frustration among the population. The sentiment of taking charge of destinies free from external interference resonates strongly among the people of Senegal. There is a growing awareness and desire for greater autonomy, independence, and sovereignty. The historical context, including colonial legacies and external influences, has shaped how Senegalese people perceive their place in the world. The call to take charge of destinies signifies a collective aspiration to assert control over internal affairs, free from external pressures and interventions. This sentiment reflects a broader movement towards self-determination and a rejection of external interference in the country's political, economic, and social spheres. What do the people of Senegal demand in response to their frustrations and aspirations? In response to their frustrations and aspirations, the people of Senegal demand specific changes and reforms. Foremost among these demands is the right to free and fair elections. The call for transparent and inclusive electoral processes reflects the people's desire to participate in democratically shaping their country's leadership. Additionally, there is a demand for a government that respects their democratic rights, emphasizing the need for a political system that upholds the principles of accountability, representation, and responsiveness to the people's will. These demands collectively highlight the Senegalese people's call for a more just, equitable, democratic governance structure. How does the demand for free and fair elections align with the people's aspirations in Senegal? The demand for free and fair elections aligns closely with the aspirations of the people of Senegal. It reflects a desire for a democratic political system that allows citizens to participate actively in the governance of their country. Free and fair elections are a fundamental mechanism through which the people can express their political will, choose their leaders, and hold them accountable. The alignment between this demand and the people's aspirations signifies a collective call for a more transparent, inclusive, and democratic political process that empowers citizens and ensures their voices are heard in shaping the future of Senegal. Do you think Senegal can fix all this? What do you think would the strategy be to fix? Do you see any hope in politicians? Let us know in the comment section. Have Western nations contributed to the crisis? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.